On this episode of the Mompreneur Show, I'm talking to the remarkable Rhonda Stoppe. She's a wife, a mother of 4 children, an author and speaker dedicated to helping women live life with no regrets. On the show today, she will share with us how to be good at all 3, marriage, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for joining us live on the Mompreneur Show today. I'm your host, Vicky, and this is a show that features amazing stories of the most remarkable mompreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
It is so good to have you. I love the message that you're spreading around the world with your speaking engagements and with your books about how to live a no regrets life. And I cannot wait to dig into all the things that we can do to build a no regrets life. But let's start from the very beginning. How did you start your career of writing and speaking, and at the same time raising a beautiful family of 4 children and a husband of how many years?
35 this October that we just had. It's great.
Oh my gosh. And see, I love that you're speaking your walk. And how there's this quote, like walk your talk, but you're doing it the other way around. You're actually talking about your walk, which is so inspiring. All right, I'll give it to you, and I'll let you talk about your story.
I think if I were going to address all of the moms that are listening, I remember when I was just keeping my head above water. I remember when after my first daughter was born, I had worked in corporate America, climbing that corporate ladder. And my husband and I had agreed that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom when our kids were born. Mm-hmm. We lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. Wow. And back then, this was in 81, the olden days, the 1900s, when I got married. And we were wanted to buy a house. So our first house, I'll kind of back up, as we were engaged, we were looking for houses. And my husband and I found this cute little house in the middle of this adorable little community called Willow Glen in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it was I think it was maybe 800 square feet, little dump. So we remodeled it because my husband was in construction, and then we moved into it, 1-bedroom little house, and it was a great place to start. And then after that, we decided to sell and buy another, and we realized the housing prices had gone up. So we started living in our homes that we were remodeling. We could, they have shows now, all the people that are doing fixer-uppers, we had our own show, and just nobody got it back then. Everybody was like, you're weird, living in, sheetrock dust and skill saws all over the floor or whatever. But at that point, when we decided I got pregnant, and we had just bought this house, and we had this huge house payment, even on a dump back in the Bay Area. It's just expensive. So we had a decision to make. It's like, okay, we always said that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, but my salary was paying for our house payment, and Steve was paying for everything else. And so we really had to decide, are we going to commit to what we had talked about, or are we going to put her in daycare or whatever. And I just really, really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So I quit my job, and we just started figuring it out. And back then, my contribution was managing our budget, not, spending the money that I would have spent when I was working, but also in just helping what I could do to remodel the house. And so a lot of that just meant a lot of grunt work. That was my contribution at the time. And then we would, as soon as the house got finished, Steve would come home and he'd be like, hey, baby. And I'd be like, no, it's so pretty. And he'd have found another fixer-upper. And we couldn't afford to live in one house. Yeah. So we had to move into it. So I'm always, you hire somebody to clean at least one room that I can, not be disgusted by it, and I'll move into it. So that was the beginning of our relationship. My contribution to our business in construction was just not to complain, to suck it up, and to do what I could to help him accomplish his dream. Okay,
so I'm going to stop you right there for a second. I can so relate to this because we bought our first house here in the South, and we are remodeling it. And it has been so stressful because we're on a time frame. We have to move in because we were literally living with family. And it was like, okay, we're moving in, but the house is not done. We're literally moving in tomorrow, and we don't have our floors in yet.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
So, and I'm like preparing myself, like, and my husband's amazing, but I tend to whine, like, everything is dirty. I can't even do, like, so how do you set yourself up for success about not whining and complaining, about like, how do you position your mindset in a way to be a positive and supportive wife?
It takes every day deciding. And it's not just looking at in the moment, it's looking at the big picture. And at the very end of my book, If My Husband Would Change, I'd Be Happy, and Other Myths Wives Believe, I talk about a quote where a man said, I have known, let's see, how did it go? I have known average men that have accomplished great things because they have a woman in their corner telling them they can. And I think that's the key is, if your husband's coming home, my husband had to work all day. It wasn't like the remodel was his job. He went to work all day. And when he came home into the evening, he'd be, doing whatever he could while I'm trying to make dinner, on a little electric skillet, or we're doing fast food yet again or whatever. But I think just helping him understand, I see the big picture. And he knows the sacrifice that you're making. But if you're not doing it joyfully, it's really going to be hard on your marriage. It's going to be hard on him. It's not going to give him the energy to do it. And then I'll say this. I know people that are like, okay, we got to get it done. We're not going to do anything fun. We're not going to do anything until this house is done. We didn't do that. We played. There were times where it's like, you know what? Let's get out of here and go away for the weekend, or let's just take the kids and go to Disneyland, or let's just do something other than remodeling this house that we're having to live in. And I know a lot of people can remodel a house from afar, but when you're living in it, it becomes so, it can become consuming. And also I stopped sweeping up the sheetrock dust every day because it's going to be there tomorrow. So write your name, write "I love you, honey" in it with a happy face, and go to bed. It's easier.
Oh my gosh. Yes, drywall dust has been the story of my life. Like, I've been coming home like white hair. I still think I have paint on my hands. Like, it's a life. But see, we're not living in there right now. We are gonna move into it before it's ready. But I grew up like that too. Like, I grew up with my dad and mom remodeling our home and living from room to room. Like living in the only clean room and remodeling everything all around it and eating outside and stuff. I totally get it. So
it creates this intimacy and this camaraderie in your relationship and even in your family. Gary Smalley wrote a book a long time ago, and he did a video series. It's called Hidden Keys to Loving Relationships. I mean, this was like in the 80s. But one of the things that he talked about in there, he had interviewed all of these really well-adjusted families and marriages. And he asked them like a survey, like to find out what was in common of these families that and marriages that were doing so well. And one of the things that they said was we go camping together. Wow. And so he took his family camping, wasn't a camper, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. It rained, their son got hurt, they had to end up in the emergency room. Terrible. They got home and they were like, we'll never go camping again. But then they started telling their stories about camping and laughing. And then he realized camping is a challenge that everybody goes together as a family to accomplish something, and it knits you together. So we never did the camping thing as much as the remodeling. And in the first chapter of my book, If My Husband Would Change, I'd Be Happy, I talk about after we had done a bunch of that remodeling, my husband's goal has always been to have land and to be debt-free. And so in the 80s, the housing prices skyrocketed in the Bay Area, and Steve was like, this is it. This is our chance to cash out. We got to get out of here. And he found this 80-acre ranch outside of the Bay Area, dirt cheap, had a little house on it covered in snow. We pulled up to it, so pretty, charming. And I knew I was holding my husband's dream in my hand. And his eyes were, those heart shapes in his eyes. It's like, this is it. And I remember, I knew if I said no to him, we wouldn't have done it. I knew that if I would have said, I can't move in the middle of nowhere, I can't, move into this one-bedroom little house. We had 2 kids at the time. But I knew I was holding his dream. So I said yes. We signed on the dotted line, sold our house in the Bay Area. And we went back up after the house closed escrow to look at it, and the snow had melted. we bought a shack. It was not a cute, charming little cottage.
Oh
The snow made it look like it had frosting all over it. It was horrible. No power. We lived on a generator for 2 years. I slept on a sofa bed with Steve while the kids had the one bedroom with bunk beds. There was a wood stove in the living room, so we like tried to tell ourselves how romantic that was. So romantic that I had a surprise pregnancy. Did my whole pregnancy with my third child on that sofa bed. And you know what? That's the house we live in now. But my husband added on to this house, and the memories that my kids have, the memories that Steve and I have, the tears. I cried. I made sure he knew, I'm doing this for you, buddy. And it wasn't like I was always like, yay, attaboy. I mean, he left for work at 5 a.m, commuted, didn't get home till 7 at night, and then he would work all night, not all night, but through the evening and on the weekends on this house. And I had to choose to be joyful about it. I had to choose not to, remind him what sacrifice I was making. He knew. And I was pregnant with my youngest, Kayla, literally doing dishes in the bathtub, sitting sideways because I couldn't reach for the tub.
Oh my gosh.
Thinking, how is this my life? And yet, we've been married 35 years. I love where we live. I write books. I stay home. I work from home most of the time. No one interrupts me because we live on this 80-acre ranch behind a gate in the middle of nowhere. I was telling you earlier, we only have internet for the last 2 years, so there was like just no distractions. And I couldn't be living a better dream. But I feel like the dream my husband had was the right one for us, but I could have crushed it if I would have been like, nope, I want my conveniences.
Well, Rhonda, let's talk about that because...
Are you sure you want to?
Well, no, this is the thing. This is what I'm really passionate about, and this is what I'm about. And, the listeners that, the mamas joining us live, like, they love this kind of stuff. And the thing is that I wouldn't say no one talks about it, but it's talked about very little about this mompreneurship, marriage, family, because we live in a world where we are told, we women, especially right now, we women are told we can do and be anything. Our dreams matter. We can be anyone we want to. We can, seriously, like, we have all the power to leave our homes and do whatever we want. Whatever, and the world will be on our side. So how do you stay committed to your husband and live his dream? Because seriously, in a secular world, you would think that like you're living your husband's dream. Are you kidding me? Like, go on and live your own dream, girl, So how do we say no to what the world is telling us and really live our husband's dream? Because I feel like when I would say maybe live our husband's dream is not the right words, but when we help him live his dream, we are essentially living ours too. And so I want to talk about this.
And I think I had to wrestle with that when we moved up to the middle of nowhere and I was pregnant. We bought horses because right away, if you're going to live in the country, you got to have horses, right? So we had horses. There were wild Mustangs up there at the time trying to break our horses out. I'm like Bay Area girl, born in Los Angeles. And I am literally on top of a hay bale, of a stacks of hay with a big pregnant belly. I've got a 2-year-old in the house by himself. And I'm out trying to beat the neighbor's cows off of our hay because it looks like ground up alfalfa, looks like ground up money. And I'm like, beating this cow, yelling at it, and then all of a sudden I look at myself and I'm like, look at my big old belly. I'm in my bathrobe. It's like probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Why get dressed? No one's gonna pop in on you up there. And I remember like just bursting into tears, and I'm like, how is this my life? I was homecoming queen. And I go in the house, and I remember, like, now it's funny, but at the time I was feeling like, why am I doing this? And yet I believed in my husband. My husband is a good-willed man. And he has good ideas and good plans and good passion to do the things that I know are going to be good for both of us. Yeah. So it cost us a lot. In fact, there's a little restaurant up where we live. There was one of the last one-room schoolhouses in the nation was up there when my kids went to the school. It was a super fun little house on the prairie period kind of our life. Little restaurant that was up there. All the people that had lived up there, some people even homesteaded up there, like in covered wagons. Their families have been there for years. They were taking bets on that we were going to be divorced. And I was like, oh no, you just watch my smoke. And I tell you, there were things and it wasn't just us. Anytime a city slicker brought his wife up there to try to live that life, generator for 2 years, There was always that, like everybody putting money down to
Why
see.
is that? Why is that?
Well, I think it's because wives, for the most part, it is an inconvenience, and it's something that unless you get on board, that you see the big picture, unless you're looking ahead to say, no, I believe in you. I believe you have our best interest in mind.
Yeah.
I believe you are being inspired by something greater than yourself to accomplish this.
Yeah.
And I am willing to walk with you through that. And the cool thing about our whole story is Steve was a youth pastor. He was in youth construction, but he always worked in a youth ministry in the Bay Area. And we have a passion for just helping teenagers like figure out their life and not destroy their lives when they're at that age.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when we really wanted to go into full time doing that, but we couldn't. In fact, the church that Steve was youth pastoring in the Bay Area had offered him a full-time job. And I'm like, let's do it. And Steve's like, baby, we can't afford to. Our monthly net is way more than they could ever afford to pay us.
Wow.
So that's when we decided we're cashing out, we're doing this. And then if you fast forward, after 10 years that we'd had that property, we moved to Texas for a while, kept our house, and we moved back 17 years ago. But the reason we moved back was because a little church in a town called Patterson that we didn't even know existed at the time, that is 22 miles from our ranch in a small little town in the Central Valley, contacted my husband and hired him, asked him to come on as their full-time pastor. Wow. And we were like, let's do it. And the thing about that was we could not have afforded to live on the salary that small church was offering us.
So how did you do it?
We had our ranch and we were debt-free. We had no house payment on it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we were able to come back to our ranch and live in this house that Steve had built that we loved, and take a job that otherwise we'd have to live in like the church parsonage, or I would have had to get a job. And anyone who's married to a man in ministry knows that if you want to help him, that means you don't necessarily want to be gone all the time. You don't, if my husband has a commitment, he's a counselor, not to counsel women alone. So I'm always in the room when he counsels. Well, if I was to go get a job full time to support needs, that would have tied his hands, and it would have had to been in evenings or whatever. So
yeah. Really, really interesting. So how did you become an author and speaker about the no regrets life?
Well, Steve and I both have spoken to youth for years. And like I said, that has been my passion. When you can step into the life of a young woman and help her build a no regrets life, when you can give her a biblical foundation, a foundation that's based on morality, that's not based on just live your dream, what you feel today and ride your emotional roller coasters. I think any of us ladies know that our emotions change every 28 days. We don't even know what we want. So that became a passion of mine when I was younger. When my kids were little, Steve and I spoke at youth camps, and our kids always went with us to the camps. They always hung out with us. They always loved it. And we had a youth that met in our home in Austin, Texas, and we had 200 teenagers at our house every Wednesday. We made over 10,000 hot dogs in 1 year, because if you feed them, they will come. And we had a blast doing that. In fact, our oldest son, Tony, came to our family as a result of that youth ministry. We met him when he was 15 years old. Wow. And it's interesting because you meet a lot of kids from...
So you adopted him?
We did not on paper adopt him, but took him into our family, and he became our son. And he graduated from high school, went to A&M University, went into the Air Force with a slot as a fighter pilot in the Air Force. And it just, the impact that we were able to have, not only in the lives of all of those kids, but he wrote the most beautiful note. In fact, in my book, Moms Raising Sons to Be Men, Tony wrote about the impact of being in a family, seeing a husband love his wife, a wife honor her husband, children respect their dad. Like even just that short time that he was in our home, how it transitioned his understanding of what a healthy family even looked like. Wow. Tony is now, I think he's 35, 36 years old. I can't remember, just had a birthday. And he's married to a wonderful, godly woman. He has 2 great kids. He just made lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. And anyway, I kind of chased a rabbit there, but having that be what we wanted to see as what we wanted to do with our lives, we had to realize, okay, if I go to work, I can help. I can make sure we get medical insurance. I can make sure that we get all of the things that we need, but that's going to leave to Steve to do a lot of the schooling for our kids. Because I ended up, when we moved back to California, it's called independent study through the high school in Patterson. because we live 45 minutes from town. So our two youngest did school basically at home.
Homeschool,
and they met yeah. Yeah, and I was always like, oh, I'm not a homeschooler. And it's ironic. I speak at homeschool conventions all the time now, and I think it's when I used to go to them when my kids were little, everybody was like wearing, well, I was going to say denim jumpers and Birkenstocks, but Birkenstocks are back in style now. It's definitely, I was like, I don't fit here. I'm.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, so you didn't want to go back to work. You homeschooled your children. How did you get into writing, and how did that impact your life and your income?
As a speaker, I speak at different events, and I was speaking at an event that another woman, her name is Cindy McMenamin, who is an author, she was speaking at this event. She was the keynote speaker, and she and I had lunch together. Mm-hmm. And we were talking, and I was chatting, and I had always had this impression on my heart that I wanted to write, but I'm not a writer. I dangle my participles, I run on my sentences. I can't sit in a chair for 5 minutes without getting distracted. But I love teaching. I love, let me help you build a no regrets life, whether it's a one-on-one mentorship or whether it's in a situation where I'm involved with, a group setting or a women's event, a retreat, whatever. So Cindy and I were having lunch together, talking about our life stories. And she said, can I ask you a question? Why are you not a published author? And she reached over and grabbed my arm, and I pulled my arm away, and I said, why would you say that to me? I said, I'm not a writer. I'm a teacher. I'm passionate about teaching and mentoring this next generation to build no regrets lives, but I am not a writer. Yeah. And she reached back over and grabbed my arm, and she said, Rhonda, writing's just teaching on paper. And it was like this enormous aha moment for me. Wow. Because I am passionate about that. She goes, my books go into prisons. I get emails from women I never would have met or mentored because my book found its way into her life. Oh, and she said, I'm going to help you. And I'm like, really? So Cindy called me once a week for a year. And she had written a book called When a Woman Discovers Her Dreams. And so she's passionate to help women discover their dreams. And it's a great book if you want to pick it up. Yeah. And she called me once a week for a year, and she helped me write 5 book proposals about topics that I was really passionate about. And she edited them and walked me through them. I mean, it was a lot of work. And she didn't charge me to do that. She just wanted to help me. Wow. And then she sent all my proposals to Harvest House Publishers. And her editor contacted me, and we met together with the president of Harvest House, and my husband and I looked at all my book proposals. They rejected all of them, which I was like, all right, get out of jail free card. I don't have to do this. It's like writing term paper all for your whole life. And then the president of Harvest House, Bob Huckins, asked me, I had a series of speaking engagements, and he said, tell me about this one, Moms Raising Sons to Be Men. And I said, well, the book resonates with moms because we are passionate to guide our sons to live a life with no regrets, and we don't know what we're doing. And I remember when my kids were born, all of them, I knew I wasn't the mom I longed to be. I knew I wasn't the mom I meant to be. Yeah. I just didn't know what to do about it. So Steve and I were in youth ministry, and I had looked around at the families of our youth and the kids that stand out. And I asked their moms, will you mentor me? I want to know what it is you did. Wow. And so that's really what my message, Moms Raising Sons to Be Men, is just a personal mentor to guide women how to lead their children to a life with no regrets. So he said, write that book, Moms Raising Sons. I go, no, I only have 2 sons and 2 daughters. I'm not an expert in raising sons. And he said, no, that's the book I want you to write. So that was my first book for Harvest House Publishers. And I was telling you earlier, when it first came out, it was selling 1,000 copies a month. And number one place was, at Walmart and airports and truck stops, just random places. Moms come by and see that title. And I'm going to show it to you. And there's like, Moms Raising Sons to Be Men. That's me. And they'll grab it because we know what an ominous task it is to guide a son to be the man. I think as a woman, when we're raising our daughters, we're like, okay, I get it. It happened to me. It's not that miraculous.
Yes.
But when those sweet, sweet faced little boys start getting like whiskers on their face and hairy armpits and smelling kind of funky, we're like, okay, I don't know who you are and I don't know what to do to help you, but I can help. And we only get one shot at it. And that's where mentors come in, because those of us that have walked the path ahead can say, hey, here, this is my successes, this is my failures, this is the things I wish I had known before I had that baby little boy. And it talks about raising your kids all the way from when they're children to adulthood. And so anyway, that's how I started writing.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's Okay, so your story is so remarkable. Like, it speaks directly to my heart. And those of you who are watching live from your homes, please let me know how this interview speaks to you. Rhonda has such an incredible story. I can relate to so many pieces of it, and I hope that you can too. Now, Rhonda, what advice do you have for moms, for wives who are overwhelmed and maybe thinking like, what did I get myself into by marrying this guy? Or what in the world am I doing? I never imagined my life like this. What would you tell to moms like that who feel that?
I've been there. And I think every mom at some point has been there.
Yeah.
When I had my third child, Kayla, we were living in the middle of nowhere. And after I had her, I had postpartum, which I had never had. And I'm glad I had it, because I can relate to women now, because I speak all over and talk about the issues that women face in their life, and postpartum, and even PMS. Because after I was done with the postpartum, I had really bad PMD. I was like a crazy person. And I remember it was all crazy up in here. I just got very quiet and pulled back. And I remember when I explained it to Steve, I was like, he's like, he's known me, he's my high school sweetheart, and we fell in love. I was 14 years old when I met him. I was a Stoppe stalker from way back. And when we got married, I was only 20 years old, and he has he's an incredible man. I just can't even tell you, he's the kindest person anyone would ever want to meet.
But we don't always see that in our husbands.
Yeah, you have to look for it. And I think that's the key. There's a scripture that I have memorized from Ephesians that guides me. And it's whatever is good, whatever is right, whatever is honorable, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, whatever is, if there's anything excellent, anything worthy of praise, think on these things. There is a way to fall in love, and there's a way to stay in love. When you fell in love with your husband, you thought about that nice tight hiney that he had in those blue jeans, and the way that he, walked in the door and just looked just so and smelled so great, and anything he did, he just walked on water. And then after we get married, we stop focusing on those things that made us fall in love with them, and we focus on the things that don't measure up to our expectations. In my book, If My Husband Would Change, I talk about my husband had an obsession with peanut butter toast. After we were married, I didn't realize I have this obsession with crumbs. And so I would walk in the kitchen, and he's thinking he's saving me the trouble of not using a paper plate or a plate I have to wash. So he would make the toast on the counter, and then he would leave these peanut butter toast crumbs. Are you kidding me right now? Because we assign motives to people's actions. So when you do that, you're telling me you don't care about what I do all day. Yeah. You're saying you didn't even notice that I cleaned the kitchen. So I would gasp audibly, and then he'd come and be like, "What?" Thinking someone murdered the cat, and I'm like, "The crumbs." Yeah. It's like, oh my goodness, I married a crazy person. So in this time when I was struggling with PMS, I remember telling my husband a story about, imagine if you were a werewolf, and every 28 days you were going to turn into this werewolf, and you're going to eat whoever was near you, whether you love them or not. And the only hope you had as a werewolf is that someone would care enough about you to lock you in a cage until the full moon had passed. And, when you really want someone to understand where you're coming from, tell them a story that they can relate to. I watched Steve have an aha moment when I shared that story. He got it. And he couldn't change the emotions that I was feeling or the overwhelmed feeling, but he stepped in and helped me. He, as much as he could, would keep the kids away from my, just the noises that get to you at that time.
How did you communicate that with him, though? Like, how did you communicate that you needed that?
Well, I think starting with the werewolf story and then explaining to him, because our husbands want to rescue us. I mean, for the most part, they want to be our knight in shining armor. Yes. Sometimes they don't realize that they need to be their knight in shining armor. Rescue me from me. I'm crazy. And so when I explained to him my need is I don't want to be this person, and I'm going to do everything I can to not let any ugliness come out of my mouth, but I need you to keep the kids from just pushing my buttons. I know that it seems like I should be able to handle it, but I really can't. And so I think not in the middle of when you're crazy, and going, why can't you? And nobody understands, and blaming everybody else for how you're feeling. I think recognizing my hormones are what are making me feel this way. So now I need to take those thoughts captive. I need to not believe those thoughts that seem to be so true. I need to choose. My husband's a goodwill man. He works hard for our family. He can't possibly know what's going on with me because I don't even know what's going on with me. I'm going to believe the best about him. And I'm going to, in my rational time when I'm not feeling crazy, I'm going to explain to him, this is my need. Let's get a plan for how you can help me when I'm in that fragile state.
That's powerful, Rhonda. That's powerful. And Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. How do we let him know if we need his help? Wendy, I think that's a question. No question mark at the end. But Rhonda, how do we let him know? Like, do we talk about it? Do we maybe find a perfect, and I know that Wendy, you talked about this too, like sit him down when he's in a good mood and tell him, hey, this is what I feel. I feel like every time that I do this to my husband, I'm like, honey, you know, I'm PMSing right now. I am so sorry for like being so bratty, because I get bratty. And just warning him about it and saying, like, please be patient with me right now. I'm like really stressing out. And he totally gets it. It's so interesting because when you're honest with your emotions, and like, first you have to be honest with yourself, and then you have to share it with your husband. And I find that actually he started sharing his emotions with me as well. It's so interesting when because, you know, he's so masculine, and our husbands are, and they're so manly, and he can, you know, can get frustrated, and he'll tell me, I'm sorry, this and this and this really frustrates me. I feel really frustrated right now. Just don't mind me, you know, and it feels so good to have that very clear communication back and forth. So, Rhonda, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. And Lucy, you said timing and tone. Lucy, yes, timing is very important, and the tone that you use as well. And Rhonda shared with us, it's not about, well, you this and you that, or so-and-so this, how people make me feel. But really, it's like, this is how I feel. Make it calm, make it not like you're attacking him. So, okay, Rhonda, I warned my listeners about this in the email, so I hope everyone read that. To put your headphones on if you have kids around you. But let's talk about sex. We working wives, we have children to take care of. We have homes to keep up with. And we run businesses too. And so how do we have the time and the energy? Because, you know, sometimes we complain about that and say like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to, you know, get cuddly with my husband tonight because I had all this long day. But I know how dangerous it can be day after day after day and week after week. So could you share some advice for us?
I can. I think, first of all, I talked about that in chapter 7 of my book, If My Husband, because it is an issue that there are so many marriages that struggle with that. Yeah. And I think what we as wives have to realize is, number one, most women crave to connect with our husbands emotionally through conversation. Yes. You know, how'd your day go? And when you're a stay-at-home mom and you're working from home or whatever it is you're trying to do to contribute to your family, you know, you've had the same yoga pants on. You buy all black yoga pants, you can wear them several days and nobody even knows how many days you've worn them. It's like, whatever. You're kind of frumped out. Your husband walks in the door, you know, and you're like, honey, how was your day? And, you know, I know you went out to lunch, and where did you go? I ate the crust off the kids' peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch. And what are they wearing out there now? Because I'm wearing your t-shirt, and I'm just so aching for connection with the outside world. I get the value of what I'm doing here, but they don't get it. Those little people, they think I work for them, and they're not honoring me for the sacrifice I know I'm making. And how many times does even our culture make us feel like we're uneducated, or, oh, you couldn't get a job, so you're staying home taking care of your kids. And it's like, oh, the temptation. I remember when Kayla was born and I was struggling so badly, weeping and telling Steve, please let me go to work and you stay home. And he's like, you can't make enough money. I'm like, let me try. So anyone who's a stay-at-home mom understands, no, there's this huge temptation to say, guess what? Peace out, crazy people. You're going to go to daycare. I'm going to go hang out with grown-ups, and I'm out to lunch. And when that doesn't happen because we make a choice, this is what I want to do with my life. I hashtag a lot of the pictures in my posts. My Facebook page is Rhonda Stoppe, No Regrets Woman. And a lot of the memes that I'll post or the pictures, I'll hashtag it Architects of the Next Generation. Because doesn't it make your life more than just wiping boogers and bums all day long? My job is to be an architect of the next generation by how I guide these people that I've been called to lead. How do I do that? And it's not just in a survival mode. It's intentionally every day getting off our phones. I mean, so often we look at those phones, right? For me, when I was raising kids, it was television. Like we would watch all the talk shows and the kids would be, sitting there listening to someone spilling their beans on Oprah or whatever. Yeah. But I read a post recently, a woman that had twin boys, let them play on the floor. They were babies. And one day she decided to put her phone down and watch them play. And I think she counted 15 times in a short that they looked at her.
I heard that too.
Right? Yeah. And I think that when our children are playing, they still are looking. Even when they're babies, they're wanting to see, are you seeing me? Are you acknowledging me? Yeah. So anyway, back to your question. As your husband walks in the door, if for 2 weeks, if he said, you know what, I've used all my words, I can't talk to you right now. I just need to sit in front of the TV and veg out. I am tired. You would feel rejected. You would feel lonely. Mm-hmm. You would ache for intimacy with him that he wasn't willing to give you. Yeah. Yeah. And you would feel like he didn't care about you enough to meet this genuine need that you have to connect with him in emotion. Well, the reality is that for most men, that is not how they connect with their wives emotionally. The way that men connect with their wives is through sexual intimacy. And so if we are going to, shame them or make them feel guilty or selfish for wanting to take us to bed, husbands oftentimes feel like their wives make them apologize for wanting to have sex with them. If one more person touches me, I've been nursing kids and touching my body all day long. One more person touches me, I just don't have anything to give. And your husband's standing there. I remember being in the kitchen washing the dishes. My husband come up and kiss the back of my neck, which is usually a huge turn on. But when you have the kids all hanging on you, you're like, oh, okay, let me head around what we're doing tonight, right? And instead of saying, okay, wait, this man wants me. This man is slaying dragons out there for me. He's keeping his eyes only for me. And I am the only person that can meet this need that he genuinely has. So I'd like to read, if you don't mind.
Please do.
A quote from If My Husband Would Change, I'd Be Happy.
Please do.
Most women don't understand that men have a strong physical desire for sex. So why do wives make their husbands feel apologetic for wanting sex? I think one reason is because a woman's need for sexual intimacy is emotionally driven. We want to feel loved, desired, and beautiful. But when it seems as though a husband's desire for sex is a mere physical urge, it becomes easy to wrongly assume that he is acting selfishly and resent it. But what gets overlooked is the fact that a husband's sense of well-being, and confidence is very much wrapped up in the sexual intimacy that he enjoys with his wife. Mm. I think what women don't understand is that men struggle with feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. Out in the world, your husband may be fighting for a position at work that someone else wants. He may be older, and there's a young pup coming up that gets paid half his salary and is vying for his job. There's all kinds of things that a lot of times our husbands don't come home and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm dealing with this. But they come home, and if we not just say, okay, it's Tuesday, I'll put out, but we're like, I'm going to take you to bed. But what we have to realize is when we were dating, before we had children, we had our sexy mama hat on. Now I got my mama hat on, my sexy mama hat somewhere under the bed, under all those dust bunnies. And what used to say I love you was from your husband and romanced you was he brought you flowers or whatever. Now it's like he comes in with some Gerber daisies and he gives you a wink and you're like, I'm going to smack you upside the head with those Gerber daisies. That ain't happening tonight. Instead of saying, okay, wait, he needs to know how to romance me at this season of my life. So baby, here it is. Not in the middle of when he brings the daisies. If you can take all this chaos and make it go away, give the kids cereal for dinner, I don't care. I don't care if they get baths when they go to bed. Just let me take a bubble bath. Let me put my sexy mama hat on. You get everybody to bed and you meet me in the bedroom and I will seduce you to my bed. That's what they want. They don't want a wife that just does it out of obligation. I mean, how many times, honey, can we talk? And they go, okay, talk. What do you want to talk about? Well, I just want to talk. Well, what? No, we want them to engage. Well, the same thing if we just put out because they need it, they're not grateful for that. They feel like it's not something you're wanting to do. And my husband quoted in the back of each chapter of If My Husband Steve wrote from a husband's perspective. And one of the sections in the book, he said, from my perspective, as a counselor, men whose wives pursue them sexually are deeply in love with their wives. So it's vital that we take our selfish, this isn't fair, why do I have to do this, and say, I want to minister to this need that only I can minister to.
Exactly.
And he will be so grateful.
Rhonda, this has been so powerful. The mamas watching us live have been reacting so positively to your message. So thank you so much. And I just want to add something that I just can't just not add. But it's a metaphor to fast food. So what are you giving your husband? Are you giving him McDonald's, or are you serving him a 5-star restaurant meal at night? And so, and of course, like we do McDonald's sometimes, right? Like we eat fast food or whatever, not like McDonald's, but you know what I mean. And I feel like we have to have that balance of like, what are you serving today? And so interesting. Sometimes like this guy was speaking about that, like, you know, the fast food in the restaurant. And I sometimes ask myself that, like, what did I serve my husband this week? Was it 5-star restaurant food, or was it McDonald's? And so I think that it will connect as well with your message. The mamas are watching us now.
Sure. And I'd like to add to that, there are times, especially when we got to get up at 2 a.m. with a crying baby or whatever, it's okay to say, hey, babe, this is about you tonight. I got to get up in a few hours, so can this be quick? That is not like, okay, let's do it. It's like, I want to connect with you. Mm-hmm. We both need it, but it can't be 45 minutes. Exactly. It has to be quick because I got to get to sleep. You know,
exactly.
I think that's important to communicate about it. Exactly. And I also have another book out called A Christian Woman's Guide to Great Sex and Marriage. It's available on Amazon.com, and it's a real short ebook. So.
Oh, how cool. Yeah. And then you have another one that's called I'm Sleeping with a Pastor or something like that.
I Sleep with a Pastor. It's for women who are married to someone who's in ministry, because nobody gets what we do. Yes. Like women who are married to someone who's in ministry.
Yes,
it's also on Amazon, or all of those are on my website, noregretswoman.com.
Yes, and the website, Rhonda's website, is right below her name, No Regrets Woman, just right under her name. No, wait, the other way. Just right over there. So make sure to open a new tab and go there. But after we're done, okay, never mind.
And a fun insight too, if you click on the book, If My Husband Would Change, I'd Be Happy, there's a little audio excerpt of me teaching through each chapter that's free that you can listen to on the website, just little excerpts to each chapter. So that's fun.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. That means a lot. I really appreciate that. So, ladies, if you go to, it's in your email as well. If you go to noregretswoman.com, it's right over there in the description of above the video that you're watching, or on the side of the video that you're watching. And then just click over there, and you will get the books, and you will get to her website. Rhonda, this was so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your incredible wisdom.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It's actually a passion of mine to be able to have opportunities like this. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. It was absolutely incredible to.
And I have a new book coming out that I'm writing right now. It's called Love Stories of the Redeemed, and it'll publish January 2017, and I am dying. It's just tons of love stories, and it's just, it's the best.
Wait, so are you, and love stories, are you still taking submissions for the love stories? Mm-hmm, oh my goodness. Okay, where can we find that? On your website as well?
You know what? Just send it to me go to Rhonda Stoppe. Let's do it at yahoo.com. I set up another a special email for it, but I can't remember it right now. It's Monday morning, haven't had enough coffee. So just send it to me at rhondastoppe at yahoo.com. Tell me your love story, how you met, just any fun insights about your story, and it may end up in the book.
Awesome. Great. So mom is watching. Make sure to do that. And I will also send out an email with that email address so moms can submit their love story. Rhonda, thank you again so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And also you can sign up for my newsletter, noregretswoman.com. And I only send it out quarterly. I won't bombard your emails.
All right. Thank you so much, hon. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too. It was great.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to go back and read your comments. You are amazing. Mama, you are amazing. Olga, you're amazing. Wendy, you are amazing. Lucy, you are amazing. Like, it's so incredible to see you live here. Heather Captree, oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining us. Leilani, I love that you said sips of coffee and sips of water. Vicky is so balanced. Thank you so much. I feel very balanced today. Thank you. I almost choked on that coffee, so I'm like, I better drink some water. Luda, thank you so much for joining us. And Nina, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Oh my gosh, Nina, thank you so much for all the love. I really appreciate it. I knew you would love this episode. Oh my goodness. Rhonda was incredible. Lucy said, we've had seemingly endless opportunities to better communicate our emotions to each other since my husband's mystery injury started. Oh my gosh. Lucy, it's so interesting how like in times of trials, like really strengthens, I can't talk right now. Anyway, gives strength to our marriage. Let's see. Lucy, I really appreciate all your insights. Sexy mama hat. Yes, I love that too. Rhonda, you're awesome for sharing that. Wendy said, checking the sex box does not meet our husband's needs. Yes. Yes, Wendy, I love that. Oh, Nina, thank you so much. Yes, it was such an incredible show. I really appreciate you ladies for joining us. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I love chatting with you afterwards. And I'm sorry, sometimes I have to go sooner, pick up the kids, and we didn't get to chat like this. But thank you again so much for taking your time out of your busy lives and joining us here on the Mompreneur Show Live, which happens every single Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope you will join us again next Monday because we have another amazing guest on. And again, thank you so much. Also, if you want to learn about 5 mistakes that mompreneurs make, go on to mompreneurshow.com/5-mistakes. And you will get a free PDF that talks about the 5 mistakes that I've made and that you might be making or might make in the future if you're not aware of it. So please go on to mompreneurshow.com/5-mistakes and get that PDF. I think it will really, really, really help you and bless you. Thank you again so much for joining us today on the Mompreneur Show. We had such an incredible time. I'm signing off, your host, Vicky Lashenko, and this is a show that features amazing stories and lessons of remarkable mompreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you next time.